But you gotta maintain, you know? Yeah, so. This song is for the flower that blossoms in the rain.
Yeah, I was just reading a little bit from the Will to Change book in chapter 5, and kind of ended off on a pretty good intersection for us to start the conversation. I'm really talking about how the stereotypes of what it means to be a man or what it means to be a sexual man, how that's internalized by children or whatnot, and how really that helps to drive great culture because younger, especially boys, grow up thinking, I gotta have it, you know what I mean, and pursue it in that way. So, I wanted to, I really appreciate you being my guest at the Will to Change Project. It's really going through this book and pulling out some questions from it, and pulling in different creators to have these conversations about really dismantling patriarchy, especially the harmful aspects of it, so that we can, live better lives, honestly. So if you want to do a quick introduction, just some quick thoughts, and then we'll get into it.
Yep. Well, I'm Chad, everybody. I see a few people in the comments already familiar. But I don't know what y'all want to know about me that y'all don't. Seems like I'm pretty.
How did you start on TikTok?
I started on TikTok probably maybe 2 years ago, randomly. I'm not a social media person at all. Like never had Instagram, never had Snapchat, never had Twitter, none of those things. So I had like Facebook from like high school, like '04. But I moved to Colorado by myself. And when I was out there, I just felt like I just wanted to, like I had things to say. And I was like, well, TikTok's the biggest platform right now, so I'm just go ahead and just start. And I just pretty much started with just talking about stuff that was on my mind, and that was it. And it's been pretty okay.
That's what's up.
Yeah, I never planned on being like, an influencer or anything like that. I just started yapping.
I think that's the best way, honestly, man. It's organic growth. You know what I mean? I didn't plan on being an influencer either. I started out sharing videos during the pandemic. It was like just cooped up trying to not go crazy in quarantine. You know what I mean? And couple. But when I started, it was around the same. It was COVID, but it was also like the aftermath of George Floyd and a lot of protests and stuff like that. So while I was kind of sharing my poetry, I would just encounter like just really racist people or people that were just kind of uninformed about, they wanted to know what was going on, but they weren't thinking about like racism. They never thought about it before. So I started trying to put out content that just kind of helped, like, oh, here's this book. And then a curious thing happened. Because I got a lot of, at least a significant amount of Black male followers doing anti-racist content. But then once Kevin Samuels kind of got on a TikTok or people started sharing his videos, it just became a very misogynistic space. And so I started seeing correlations between the things that I was trying to share with white people about racism and the things that I wanted that Black men were doing to Black women. It was the same thought patterns, you know what I mean? Just different coloring book. So I started doing anti-misogynist content there and just kind of got stuck there because we got stuck there. You know what I mean? I can repost a video I did 3 years ago and it still be appropriate now as if I made it yesterday. So that's what it's about. I wanted to talk about male sexual being. I know you heard the hip hop Kendrick and Drake drop. I don't know did you hear it?
So I'm not really, like, I don't really follow like pop culture that much, but I have heard people talking about it. I did hear the Kendrick Lamar song. Was it his latest one? What was it called? Euphoria. I did hear that.
Okay. Yeah. So he dropped one more. Well, he dropped two more after that, and the last one I was trying to make a promo for this. and it just kind of got me thinking because he basically got into Drake, but a lot of what he had to say about Drake was a lot of like sexual scandals, not take care of the daughter that you had. I mean, all this stuff, and it's like I think at the core of a lot of men's problems are just male sexual being and having a healthy sexual identity. You know what I mean? Aside from misogyny, patriarchy, and all this other stuff that kind of gets attached to it. So the first question I have for you was, how do you define love?
How do I define love?
Yeah, how do you define love?
Love to me, love is genuinely wanting to see someone do well and be happy without wanting anything in return. It doesn't have to be to give love. It doesn't have to be with the expectation of being reciprocated. You just genuinely want to see this person happy. You want to see this person do well. You genuinely care about the well-being of the individual. It isn't tied. Love isn't tied to physical pleasure either. Love is just, I genuinely care about you and I want you to do well.
I love that definition. That the unconditional aspect of it. It's I feel like in congruence with that, I feel like love is it's being able to, first of all, it entails loyalty. You know what I mean? So being trustworthy, being honest, someone that you can be honest with, someone that you can be vulnerable around and share yourself with. Because if you don't have authenticity, you don't have love. There is a verse in the Bible where it talks about speaking the truth in love. I feel like, if you don't have truth, you don't have love. You don't have love, you don't have truth in practice, right? So we got to both be able to be authentic in ourselves, but also, like you said, being compassionate. But then I also think you want people to grow. Like, I think sometimes love can turn selfish, and we want a person in our lives because of what they do for us or how they make us feel. And that's not necessarily loving the person, that's loving the feeling that a person gives to you. So I feel like there should be a growth aspect to love. You know what I mean? Like, and I think you said it too, like making people wanting that person, wanting the best for that person more than anything else.
More than anything else, you just genuinely want the best for them.
Yep. And then I think there's an equity to it. You know what I mean? Just being fair, treating that person with respect. I think like there's a song, this artist out of Columbus named Middle Child. She had this song called "Love Without Respect Is Useless." It's an older song, but if you don't respect somebody, if you can't respect somebody, you can't love them. Do you believe, kind of in conjunction with that, do you believe that men are capable of love? Why or why not? And either way, why do you think, I guess, the capacity for men to be able to love is brought into question in our current era?
Okay. I actually do believe that men have I do believe that men are able to love. Men do have the ability to love. I believe that men have the ability to love the hardest. But because I honestly believe that men are emotional beings. We're told that, men are logical. No. That's just stuff that people tell men to make them feel like the leaders and stuff. I think that men are actually emotional. If more men tapped into that side, then they would really see the true strength behind them. So yes, I do believe that men are capable of love. As far as like the things that hinder it, I just think that unfortunately we as a society are condition males to believe that we are not as complex as we are. We condition males to believe that we don't require much, we don't need anything, that we're basically conditioned to believe that men are not complex human beings. So when you condition so many men to believe that they're not complex human beings that need everything among the gambit, that need to experience every emotion and show every emotion that's out there, then that is what limits men. And that's why so many cannot, that's why men are where we are, I believe, where as far as people believing that men don't have certain capacities and all these other things, but it's because we're socialized as men to believe that we are not complex as we are. I'm gonna grab this.
That's powerful. Yeah, you don't. It's the stoicism. I think is part of it.
Mhm.
I think it's a misinterpretation of stoicism. 'Cause I think the way stoicism is advertised in the West, it's like you were not only do you not show your emotions to the outside world, you don't show them to anybody. You don't even
Right.
feel them yourself. You try to. It's more so become numb to the world as opposed to I have a poker face that I show people that maybe actually present a danger to me because I don't know them.
Mhm.
But then I do have this internal life that is rich and deep and and expresses every aspect of my humanity. I think Western society expresses stoicism because we want to socialize men to be soldiers and to kind of give up their lives, for the state and for God and country, so to speak.
Mhm.
We want them to be numb on the outside and numb on the inside.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, you hear men you talk about, well, I'm on the battlefield, so I can't show that type of emotion. But we're not. No one's on the battlefield all the time, unless you're in an active war zone. Maybe some of us are, but even if you're in an active war zone, there are some times where you're not in a hot fire. You know what I'm saying? There's times where
Mhm.
you're, away from the fighting. You know what I mean? If you're in the house with your family, if you're in the house with your friends, you should not still be on the war zone. You know what I mean? In the
Right.
battlefield. At what point do you get to heal? You know what I mean? And I don't think men give themselves enough time to really heal and recuperate and do self care and things of that nature.
Yeah. You know how many men can't, men don't even have the ability to say their truth out loud, even if they were at home by themselves. They don't even feel comfortable enough with admitting who they really are out loud, even when nobody else can hear it.
That's that's painful.
It's
That's
true.
painful.
Yeah.
Um, and it's because if you're not able to accept your truth, then you're living out somebody's lie. You know what I mean? You then basically life is more of a performance as opposed to something that you're actually living, you're in being. You know what I mean? And that resonates with me because I think, like for me, I used to when I first started in corporate America,
Mhm.
I thought, and I had reasons to think that in order for me to succeed in corporate America, I had to perform as white as possible. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That had to be my performance because that's who was in corporate America. I didn't see a lot of black people in corporate America that were moving forward. So me being on the phone, you not being able to see my face, talking to customers in a city that was, not known for its racial relations. I was able to still get sales because people didn't know that I was black. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That was my performance. In the same way, I think, we perform masculinity because we feel like if I am my authentic self, I won't succeed. You know?
Absolutely. That's 100% true. I believe, especially, in the black community, the I believe that like masculinity is extremely performative because it follows like a certain template, and anybody who is outside of that template, they're immediately met with, oh, you're not black, or you're gay, or you're this, or you're that. It's
Yeah.
like we say that we're not a monolith, but anybody who exhibits behaviors outside of the monolith, they're labeled as
Right.
different. But it's like, so which one is it?
Right. We don't want people outside of the black community to to think and treat us as a monolith because we know that that's actually kind of dangerous.
Right.
But inside of the community, it's okay. Let's all be a monolith because we're gonna push people to the margin in our own groups. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that is a that's I think the tragedy sometimes about the kind of pro black community is because in one hand there's a celebration of history, there's cultural knowledge and
Mhm.
tradition and things of that nature that need to be embraced. We need to connect back to to our, our cultural roots in Africa and learn the history so we don't repeat it. But at the same time, there's a push there's homophobia, there's misogyny, there's transphobia, ableism, everything else except racism, and maybe even a little bit of that finds itself in that circle. You know what I mean? So it's only this one kind of black, that we embrace, and everyone else is not they can't be pro-black because of this or that. You know what I mean? I think that's
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what keeps a lot of people outside of movements like that, myself included.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you think it's easier for men to talk about sex or love within the company of other men, and why do you think that is the case?
Definitely sex. Definitely sex. It's definitely easier for men to talk about sex in the company of other men because men, well, most men don't even, they're not even comfortable with discovering what love is for themselves. So they're not going to be able to really kind of discuss it with other people. Most male friendships are surface level. Like I hear a lot of women saying, oh, well, he wants to be with his friends instead of, he wants to be with his friends instead of being with me and all of that. But it's like, it's not what you think. Like, he isn't going to be with his friends and they're having these deep, meaningful soul connections.
Right.
Male relationships are very surface level. They talk about very thin layered stuff, sex, sport, showing off for each other, but it's not like there's actual true deep deep bonds. So you have a group of men, like an entire demographic of men, entire like male demographic, that even though they might have friends, we're still suffering from a male loneliness epidemic.
Right.
We are still suffering from male suicides being the highest rates ever. It's like, but all the women, the majority of women have the same issue of, well, he would rather be with his friends. But what is really happening if we're still having the majority of men being alone, feeling alone deep down? That's because men aren't forming these deep connections that are necessary because we are complex human beings. So it's going to be easier to talk about sex because that is meaningless behavior. Like, it's kind of like going through the motions of stuff. And a lot of men don't even know how to make love. So they can't really show love. So they're not going to be able to express love to, other people, other groups of men. So it's just always going to be easier to talk about sex because for men, the default is the further you are away from emotion, the easier sex is. But once you start getting close to feeling emotional for someone, it affects your sex drive for them. You know what I mean, guys? As soon as you start loving the person, you can't like you used to, and that affects a lot of men, which keeps them on that side of let me not fall for it keeps them on the side of like meaningless sex. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it takes an emotional maturity to reach an equilibrium where love and sex can actually coexist. You have so many women that will say, my husband doesn't give me anything, but he can go and get, a $40 date at the Red Roof Inn and knock it out the park,
Right.
And but that comes from men not having an emotional maturity, not being able to fully express themselves. It's like they're afraid to let go of that carnal side, which fuels the sex, and embrace the emotional side so that you can actually have sex and love in the same situation.
That's a very good point. We got a couple questions in the comment section. Aza asked, is it actually easier or just more acceptable amongst the guys? I guess going back to the sex versus love. I feel like
it's easier.
I feel like love, first of all, I feel like love requires some amount of vulnerability. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times, there'll be some, at least I'm just speaking from my own peer group over the years, there'll be like 2 or 3 guys that you know are kind of romantic, but they won't share that with the group because they don't want to be seen as weak. You know what I mean? But you know that they just disappear. Like, and some men will actually, when they're in a relationship, will just disappear because they just don't want to be distracted or pulled away from that relationship. A lot of us, we don't take each other seriously. Everything is a joke. I'm gonna crack on you. We're gonna play the dozens. You know what I mean? It's a competition thing. You know what I mean? And you don't want to give the wrong intel, even though y'all are friends, to your competitor, because he's gonna just roast you. You know what I mean? Forever. You know what I mean? If he has the wrong thing, so you don't share. I know I got in the habit of just not sharing certain information. I have my pocket of friends here, and my relationships and things like that were totally separate because of that. Sex is more of a brag thing, you know, and sometimes men just be making some shit up. But, you know, it's more so, you know, like, I did this, I did that, I climbed this mountain, I climbed that mountain. And it's and again, it's still very, very surface level. You know what I mean? You're not gonna say, oh man, I got I got burnt. You know, I need medical attention, I need help.
It's surface level stuff.
Yeah. She broke my heart, you know, a lot of times. But a really good friend, I think, will be there for you when you get heartbroken or whatnot. But even then, it's not everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's like, but so many men, it's like, it really lets you know how surface level a lot of friendships are, because so many men do not feel comfortable going to any of their male friends if they were flat broke and they needed money. They would still feel more comfortable going to a woman in their life than they would be going to somebody who was their, you know, their day one, their bro, their all of that, you know. But because there's that underlying competition, there's that underlying thing that the friendships aren't as deep as they are. Because if your friendships are as deep as they are, then why can't you be vulnerable and say, hey, you know, I really don't have it. I don't have any money. You know, could you help me out? Men just don't have those deep connections with a lot of their friends. Why do you say men are like that? Because it's true. Men are like this because men are not taught from birth to embrace the full gambit of emotions. If you give most men a piece of paper and a pen and you tell them write down every emotion that you can think of, you're gonna get a bunch of 1-syllable words. You're gonna get a bunch of 4-letter words. You're gonna get a bunch of simple words like happy, sad, mad. It's gonna look like a second grader wrote it. They're not gonna give you words like zeal. They're not gonna give you words like, you know, it's so many, you know what I'm saying? They're not gonna give you words like vulnerable. They're not gonna give you words like enthusiastic. Like, they're not gonna give you words like that because men aren't taught these things. They're not even taught to tap into the things that they feel like. For so many men, what they define as love when it comes to in a intimate partner relationship, it's not really even love. It's just territorial. They're just territorial. Most men define territorial as love. And when you add a form of chaos plus codependency, that's what other people define as love. You know, it's just territorial plus a codependency. It's not true love.
And I do think, like, I used to go to different elementary schools around the city. We did this program called Choices, and we would kind of talk about, you know, the need to go to college and things of that nature. And sometimes I would go to also my kids' school at a younger age, you know what I mean? And like boys and girls at like younger age, they're expressive. They'll talk to you and, hey, I want to do this. I want to, you know, you ask a kid what they want to do, and they want to be I want to be an astronaut. I want to be president. You know what I mean? It's just imagination's just running wild. And I think especially like in like communities where there is hardship, you know what I mean? I think there's just a hardening in general across gender, you know what I mean, between boys and girls, where you'll see the boys start to get real more quiet, more stoic. And sometimes you'll see the girls as well, especially around, you know, people that they don't know, also be more quiet, you know what I mean? But I feel like the difference is with boys, they're also told that this is a part of being a man. Like, this is natural. This is what you're supposed to be. Whereas girls are still socialized to, oh, you need to be expressive. You know, you need to, you know, they're still encouraged to sing and think, you know, do things that have a full range of emotion or whatnot.
Right.
It's
like with boys, the change in personality usually comes around like 5-ish when they start school. It comes with being socialized, because honestly, like I've read several experiments on it. I went minored in sociology, so honestly, when I say men are more emotional, they actually are. Little boys, they just want to play. Like when you have them just with each other before they're socialized, little boys, they just want to play. They're very emotional. They're very expressive. Women, on the other hand, are they're very structured. They're very detailed. That's why I say women are more mental. They are more logical. When little girls play with each other, they're very structured. This is what we're gonna play. This is what we're gonna do. I'm the mom. You're gonna do this. Do what I say. You know, they're very structured. They're very organized like that. So that also lends to them being more expressive with their emotions, because they are more aware of their mentality. But when you have boys who are more emotional, but they're not taught how to recognize those emotions or how to express those emotions, that's kind of like why we get like that's kind of like why we get where we are now, basically. But I want to make sure I answer this question. Hold on. Somebody just had one. Oh, is it like girls are allowed to express emotion when young, whereas boys aren't allowed to? Yes, it's exactly like that, because when young boys are being socialized around like 5-ish years old, and another one happens around like 14, 15, that is when they're taught what is acceptable. You might have a little boy who loves, a pink backpack just because he just likes it, but he's taught, don't like that. You can't do that. You can't stop flipping, stop doing that, stop acting like a girl. It's like you can't flip. But there are so many boys from the hood that can do gymnastics.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing on the United States gymnastics team. But that's when they're taught how to suppress a lot of who they are, is once they start being socialized.
Yeah, and I think I was talking to my wife about this a few days ago. We were like talking about recess and how we did a disservice to our kids when we took away recess, especially boys who are like used to running around and playing. And you just say, no, sit still. You know what I mean? You have different types of learners. You know what I mean? Some are tactile, some are auditory, some are visual. But some are just learn by doing, learn by getting playing. I think when we just have a one way of teaching, so it's just for those that can hear it, or those can read it. I think we do. Sir, we're not cutting to the chase. We're having a discussion, so I don't know where you're coming from with that. We're gonna keep it moving though. Do you think sex is a need for men, like food, clothing, and shelter, or is it a strong want or desire?
I think that it's not a need as far as food, clothing, or shelter, but I do think that it is necessary for a man to operate in fullness. Absolutely. It isn't a need, like he's not going to
Yeah.
perish from this earth without it, but in order for a man to operate in his full, scope, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's a biological function. You know what I'm saying? So on the one hand, I think we stigmatize sex more than any other biological function. We don't stigmatize eating or things of that nature. And it's crazy to me the way we police sex, even though it's necessary. It's definitely necessary to continue to move forward as well. You have so I think it's definitely a need, but you don't need it to survive as an individual. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's in
Right.
that.
Yeah, it's like, what do I say about it? It's like, how can I put it? I don't know. You go. I was going to try and put it in like a metaphor. It'll come to me.
No, it's no. It's and I don't think necessarily it needs one. I think. Well, I'll give the follow up. What does knowing that it's a kind of a strong desire? Like, what does it say of men's ability to accept rejection when making sexual advances?
Okay. All right. So what I was going to say is, I believe it's necessary for a man to be in his full gambit, because men are emotional, and sex is like an emotional expression. Um, Even when you look at and when you said we minimize it, that's absolutely true. and we stigmatize it. That's absolutely true, but it's more important than we like to admit. You can have, let's say you have friends, someone that loves you, someone that cares about you, that values you, honors, respects you, and all of these things. That person who has all of these things for you, but they do not want to have sex with you, is called a friend or a family member. When you have all of these things, they love you, they value you, they're loyal, they respect you, all of these great characteristics, but you want to have sex with that person, that's called your partner. That's called your spouse. So we say that sex is not a big deal, but it literally is the separator between your friends and family and the person that you're with. It's literally the only thing. The only thing that you can get, the only thing that you can get from your partner that you cannot get from your friends and family is that. And the only thing that your friends and family cannot give you is that you can get for your partner. So it's a bigger deal than yeah, it's a bigger deal. And I'm not going to say that it's not. It absolutely is. So it needs to be, it's just stigmatized, but it is a big deal. And then I'm sorry, the second part of your question.
No, and I think it was about rejection, like how does that link to because how does that link to a man's ability to accept rejection? Because you got this need you're pursuing. Excuse me, wiping my eye. You got this need that you're pursuing, but it's almost like you get into coercion, you get into manipulation, you get into just telling falsehoods in order to get this thing that you want or that you feel that you need. So then, in that regard, the other person becomes like a cup that has water in it. You know what I mean? Or like refrigerator that has food in it, or any other object that has this need, and not another human being with their own autonomy, their own boundaries that need to be respected and adhered to that way. So, like, I guess where I was going with that question is knowing that sex is such a big deal. How do we navigate, the search for it and being able to accept that rejection?
Well, I think that's an issue because men are emotional. So expressing interest in someone that you want to, have sex with them, be with them, whatever, that is as vulnerable as a lot of men get to, so that is their vulnerable state, expressing, hey, I'm interested in you and I want to be with you. And without having, and because men are not conditioned to, and because men are emotional and are not conditioned to strengthen themselves emotionally. We're taught to strengthen ourselves physically, but when it comes to strengthening yourself mentally and emotionally, we just don't. So a man allows himself to be vulnerable with expressing that he is interested in someone. So that rejection is going to hurt him. It's going to hit him harder than it would hit the average rational sane person, because he does not have a lot of the defense mechanisms built up within himself to take that sting when he was at his most vulnerable state. So that's why a lot of men have so many issues when it comes to rejection. It's because for so many men, that's the most vulnerable that they're going to get, to actually put themselves out there and let someone know that they're interested in them. That's the most vulnerable, that's the extent of their vulnerability. So to shoot them down in their most vulnerable moment, when they don't have when they're not fortified emotionally to deal with, what am I feeling? Is this insecurity? Am I feeling, what are these emotions? Insecurity? Am I feeling pain? Am I feeling rejection? Am I feeling inadequacy? These are all emotions, but these are emotions that men are not taught to identify. So it turns into anger and rage and you hurt me. So it's like, ow, that hurt. Let me fight you. You hurt me. It's like that versus accepting, like, right. It's the ego. The ego is what turns what is initially insecurity, what inadequacy, all of these emotions that are legitimate, they go through the ego and they come out as anger, because the ego says, "Oh, you were hurt. That motherfucker hurt you. Hurt him back." And that's how it translates back into, now I have to hurt you because you hurt me.
I think, and then I think Dominic, he was in the comments and he said something about like having emotional intelligence as being to answer, Aza's question as far as, how do you fix that? Because one, it's kind of knowing, being familiar with how you feel and what your body is telling you when you get rejection or when you're feeling a negative emotion, and training yourself to first of all, being aware enough to know what's the appropriate response and the non-appropriate response based on the relations that you have, and then being able to channel those emotions into a healthy alternative as opposed to something that'll get you put in jail. You know what I mean? For example, right? I think sometimes men, because men have not practiced being able to sit with rejection, and learn from it. And then when I was in sales, I'll use this analogy I will use. When I was in sales, I used to do telephone sales, and they used to tell us to collect no's, right? Because if you collected the no and you went as far as you could with the no, and then eventually you would get the yes with the person that was right for that product, right? So it's you know that rejection is coming, so you're prepared for it. In fact, you welcome it, because going back over to relationships, when you get a no, that means that you've identified someone that you're not compatible with in that moment, right? So I don't want to have a relationship with someone that I'm not compatible with, that doesn't really want to be with me, because I value myself, right? And I only want to share myself with someone who also wants to share themselves with me. I don't want a reluctant lover. I don't want someone who I had to twist their arm and say, "Ooh, please, baby, please." You know what I mean? I don't want that. You know what I mean? So because I value myself. So if I get a no, oh, good, give thanks. I move on. You know what I mean? Because that no doesn't make or break me. But if you're hinging all your ego, again, putting your ego on whether you get a yes or not, or whether someone likes you, because that's where you get your sense of self from, yeah, that no is going to F you up.
You know what I mean? Absolutely. Especially if it happens within the company of other men.
Right.
That rejection, coupled with the embarrassment that you receive from people who are supposed to be your friends. Why are men taught this as boys? Because men as a collective do not want to be seen as emotionally vulnerable human beings. That's why we don't want to be seen as human. We want to be seen as doing machines and providers of resources, but then get mad when that's all that people view us as. So when you have this rejection and this hurt, and you're around other people, now this hurt, this vulnerability turns to embarrassment. And unfortunately, again, men are not taught how to. Emotions are like water, like the word emotion is energy in motion. This is your energy. Right. We're not taught how to flow. So when most men feel these things, the easiest thing to revert to is because they feel hurt, but they don't know how to channel that hurt. They just feel as if someone hurt them, so they go into a defense mode. So they will throw an insult at the person. "Oh, shut up, you fat ass! Oh, you ain't even know that." It's right. All of these things happen because they were hurt. So they feel like, I need to hurt you because it's no different than you punched them in the face. Now I need to hit you back.
No, absolutely. Just in conjunction with that, because the question was asked, well, where does this come from? Who teaches this? This is something, and this is why it's important to have an understanding of what patriarchy is, right? Patriarchy is not one person. It's not, it's not like the president, you know what I mean? And that person propagates it. It is something that the entire society supports and expresses as part of their culture, as part of the cultural identity of that society, right? So it's through the media, it's through the religion, it's through the teachers. It's something that men and women teach, right? So even if you have a single parent led home where it's a single mother, that child more than likely will be indoctrinated, unless she did her own personal work, will be indoctrinated into patriarchy because they're telling you, hey, this is what a man is supposed to be. That's why you have some boys being put in the position of the man of the house, even though they're 8, 9, and 10 and have no idea what that means, but they're put in that position because they're male, right? So
Right. And
it's incumbent upon everyone, you know what I mean, that has the eyes to see and ears to hear to pull that apart. You know what I mean? To because it's not healthy for boys and it's not healthy for girls to have that put on you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's like they're even in that situation, that dynamic, they teach their sons that because that is what they have been taught. Because we're all socialized in the same environment. They're taught that a man means this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So when they are teaching their sons what it means to be a man, they're going to go by the same book that men have taught them, as far as this is what it means to be a man. Get that boy out there. You know what I'm saying? We've heard it all the things that make a boy a man.
Yeah.
And they're going to teach their sons those things. There's so many single moms that have sons. The first thing they do is, I'm going to put them in sports. I'm going to just do that. Even if it's not interesting to him, even if their son isn't interesting, but they feel that is what's going to make him more, you know, of a man. That's something that boys should do. The first thing to do is put him in sports and then put him in football or something.
Now, and not to knock, I'm not going to knock sports for some children. Sports is an outlet for some children.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way out. But when sports is your only solution, like when if you ask, hey, what are you doing? Well, I coach football, and that's like the standard answer you get from every black man. Oh, not tutoring, in math and science, but not mentoring in business, not, teaching home economics. Like, you're not creating well-balanced children. If all the men, the only way they connect with the youth is through sports, then you just gonna have a bunch of sports heads that don't know, that don't feel like that there's anything else besides sports.
And really, what it really is just a lot of parents go that direction because it's a way for their children, for their sons to release their emotion, to release their anger, to release their energy. So it's like, it isn't necessarily like teaching them how to channel their energy. It's just a way of, it's just a different vehicle. You know what I'm saying? It's like, he can get it out by getting it out on the football field, but are you really teaching him what he is recognizing when he feels that line on the inside, when he feels that aggression on the inside? Are you teaching him what that means and how to get that out in a non-physical way?
It would be the same as teaching a kid martial arts, right? And they get involved in martial arts, but all they learn how to do is kick and punch, but they don't get the philosophy and everything else that goes along with that way of life. You know what I mean? Because there's some coaches that maybe do a phenomenal job, especially like, and I'm not Christian, but I know that there's some coaches that they bring their religion with them, you know what I mean? But at least it's something that's in addition, like, here's a spiritual foundation along with the football game, or here's a mental foundation along with the game. But that varies. But I think we need more balance is all I'm saying.
Absolutely. We need more balance. We need just as much emotional fortification as we have in physical release. We have different avenues of physical release of energy. You can release this energy, but when men get to young adulthood or late teenagehood, and those avenues, and they're too old for those avenues, they still want to release that energy, but now they don't have sports to release that energy. They don't have sports as a method to release that energy, and they were never taught how to truly channel the energy. So they fight. They go into the streets. They go into all this chaos as young adults and late teenagers, because they still need to release this energy that they have. So many dudes get into so much trouble because they're just bored. They're bored, and They're just bored, and they need to get this out of them. And that's the thing that a lot of men have, that, you know what I'm saying? It's a natural that's inside of them, and they don't have a way of recognizing that and channeling that into like a positive way. You have to be able to recognize, and release your energy. And so many people don't even know what they're feeling.
No, absolutely. I get that question. As far as one person says, some women, far as back to the 70s, said they didn't need a man to raise boys. What did they pass down? And I think anytime we're going back into a time period, we need to look at what was going on, what was going on at that time, right? And if you're talking about, again, we're talking about patriarchy. What patriarchy is basically saying, and what women, I think, we're saying, including Black women, maybe not as much, but basically, if you're a woman, in order to be whole, in order to be complete, you needed to marry a man, right? That's how I observed, not just observed personally, but this is what I observed personally. That's what I've read in books. That's what I've seen through media. That's what I've seen through the Black women that I've talked to. They were all pushed to marriage. Marriage was the magic bullet, the golden ticket on what would make your life complete. So if you wanted to be learn to be polite, manners, be ladylike, feminine, you attract a man, you marry a man, and you have a family, and you live happily ever after. And that was the narrative that women were given. And what women were saying naturally was say, okay, well, wait a minute, I can be a whole person by myself. I don't need a man. That doesn't mean that I don't want a man. That doesn't mean that a man wouldn't be nice. It just means I don't need a man to live, to survive. Even if I have a kid, I can still live and survive without one. And I think it's I hate the word disingenuous, but it's a very interesting way to pose a question when a lot of women had to raise their children by themselves. Whether it was the prison industrial complex. Again, we're talking about the 70s and 80s now. We're talking about the crack epidemic. We're talking about heroin. We're talking about the war on drugs, the prison, all those things that took men out of the home, deindustrialization of the urban community, going out to the suburbs, all those things happening. And we're going to say, well, why is she saying that she doesn't need a man? What is she passing down? She's just passing down survival like everybody else.
Yeah, and the question kind of is disingenuous because when they said that, they're not. So if she said that, why would she say that? She said that because that man was not offering her anything. No human being would say that they don't need someone that is offering them something of value.
Right.
So it's like that did not come out of anywhere. That's why it does feel disingenuous, because they're not even asking themselves why. Why would someone say that? Why would somebody, even if I'm looking at myself, if I were in that situation, and when someone says, well, I don't need you, the first thing I'm going to think about is, well, what am I offering you? And if I'm not offering you anything, then of course you won't need me. Because I would say that to somebody else. If you're not offering me anything, tangible or intangible, you're not meeting any of my needs as far as emotional, financial, or anything, then I don't need you. So it wasn't that they were it wasn't that they were saying that I don't need this man who is complimenting every part of my life. They didn't.
Right.
They said they don't, when they say they didn't need it, it was because the men were not offering them anything. This was, when you look at, so he wants to go to the 70s. When in the 70s, it was the very first beginning. It was the beginning of the decline in Black marriage. It was when it started to go down slowly. It hit rock bottom in the 80s. And the 80s was because of crack. The crack epidemic. That was the biggest reason for a lot of the issues. It wasn't that they, didn't want to. And as far as women saying that they didn't need a man, it was because if you have a woman and you give her a child and you're not marrying her, I believe that for a minute. You're not marrying her and you're not providing any resources to her, why? What are you offering her? Let's be straight up. What are you offering her? Nobody can throw a man out of a house that is his. If you have a house that's in your name, at least it's in your name. If you have a woman that you gave a baby to, you have her living inside your house, nobody can kick you out of your house. You know, you didn't give her a house, so she had to go ask for one because you didn't give her one.
And if you were doing all of those things, you would be wanted.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're needed too, but the emphasis wouldn't be on need; it would be on want. I'm not talking about I want you with me.
Absolutely. Like, let's call a thing. Like, intimately, even if it's just for that. Like, nobody. She didn't say I don't need a man. I just want to be alone by myself and not like no. That's not. It's like everybody wants to look at just that part, and they don't even want to say what could drive somebody who was socially conditioned from birth to want, need, and depend on a man. What could drive somebody from there to saying, I don't want a man?
Right.
That's a lot of social conditioning. That's a lot of, it's like they don't want to even look at, that doesn't just happen for no reason. Like a woman is socially, it's like the patriarchy sets men up to always be able to have access to a woman because it programs, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It programs women to always want, need, and desire you. It teaches women that they aren't even whole and complete women unless they have you. Women argue with each other, and the way that they insult each other is, you ain't got no man, you ain't got no husband, he ain't your man. Like, women are socially conditioned knee deep into patriarchy. They believe that some women believe that in order to be a whole and complete woman, you must have a man in your life. The biggest titles that a lot of women give themselves are wife and mother. Two titles that would not be able to, you would not be able to have unless it was because of a man. So It's like there's so much to a man's advantage when it comes to a woman's mindset and the way that they're programmed. So to have a woman have all of that programming and for her to get to the point of saying, I don't need a man, instead of being so emotional, you need to think with your fucking mind and say, what could drive her from there? How the hell did we get there? But they don't do that. They don't even think like, damn, I really have to be a piece of shit for somebody to go from not even feeling like a whole woman
to put a restraining order on me.
Yeah, it's like
you got a restraining order on you. They don't put restraining orders on people for no reason. They put a restraining order on people because you said you were going to unalive somebody. You know, you threatened somebody's life.
She wouldn't even feel like a woman unless she had you. And now she don't even need you. That's come on. It's a lot of degrees. Something had to happen. That don't just happen by accident.
Yeah, let's keep it stacked. Bell Hooks said something. She said she talks about the split between men's covert cultivation of lust and their overt acts of sexual repression as the initiation into patriarchal masculinity. What are your thoughts on the way boys are initiated into masculinity, manhood, and sexual maturity?
A lot of boys are conditioned to believe that your manhood resides in your pants, in your sexual conquest, in your in how many you can conquer. So that affects them at a very deep level, to the point where if they're not getting the attention that they need to achieve this sexual conquest, to achieve this bodies, you know what I'm saying? It's like men are celebrated for getting as many bodies as they can. So anything that kind of hinders that, they see it as a direct attack to their masculinity. So that leads to a lot of feelings of inadequacy, which leads to violence, which leads to so many different things. So many men believe that their manhood isn't necessarily tied to what they can do up here. is literally tied to sexual conquest.
That's facts. That's facts. When I thought about that question, it made me think about religion, because a lot of times in religious settings, on the surface, people are striving for sexual purity. You know what I mean? But then underneath that, you find like people are like serially like going after church girls, quote unquote, to for easy pickings. You know what I mean? Because I think, and this is from observation. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying this about all churches, all religions. I'm talking about pros personal observations, and I've been in like several churches. The women are socialized too long, even more for a husband. You know what I mean? And until then, they're longing for. They almost project that onto the pastor sometimes. You know what I mean? So you have women who are like told over and over again that, again, marriage is what you should be searching for. You know what I mean? This is the way to live a complete life. Either overtly or covertly told that. You know what I mean? And you're single with kids. So you're looking for a man, a good man. You know what I mean? And so I see men sometimes be sheep in wolves' clothes, or the clothes, wolves in sheep's clothes, and pretend to be that good man, and just knocking off women one by one in the church, pretending to be that good man. And but still trying to keep the holiness, about I'm still holy, you know what I mean? And then, but if a woman gets outed in that way, she's a harlot. I mean, she's the scourge of the earth. She's the 304. It's just real interesting, especially with this body count conversation, where it's like, on the one hand, men want to have sex, but at the same time, you're castigating other people for having a body count.
Yep. It's because men are more emotionally sensitive than they want to admit. A lot of men don't feel that they can conquer something that like this kind of speaks to the church thing, is easy pickings that you just said.
Right.
A lot of men don't feel that they can conquer something that is better than them. So having a high body count as a woman, being a 304 as a woman, is intimidating, because it's like, I can't do nothing to her that she ain't never done before. I might not be able to please this one. Right. I might not be able to, and that kind of even goes into why so many men are drawn to younger girls. Like I know so many dudes who are my age who got experience from girls in their mid 30s, they have all this experience, but they like younger girls because of how they can make a younger girl react in bed. That feeds their emotions. They love that. You know what I'm saying? That's why they stray away from women that have more experience, because it's harder for them to think and feel that they can do that same thing that they're doing to that younger girl. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so because so much of it is tied into their identity as a man, they just, it's like it's easier for so many men to just stay comfortable versus pushing themselves and seeing, can I grow, emotionally? Can I grow mentally? Can I grow? But it's just easier to stay in that box. Let me stick to what I know. Let me go for the easy picking fruit. Let me not work to become more emotionally intelligent. So you get a younger girl, she's not going to ask you to be emotionally intelligent. She's not going to ask you for all of these things, because she's not aware herself. So it's just easier.
No, you hit the nail on the head right there. Some men will tell you, I just want a man. I want someone to be submissive. I want someone that's gonna, basically follow my lead, and there's someone that I can mold. You know what I mean? And that's
right. Exactly. Because somebody who doesn't, a lot of men don't even want to admit that the things that a woman can say to him, that can make your thing shrink. You know what I'm saying? Like it can affect it really can affect your stuff. So to have a woman, that's why that's why I even tell women, y'all don't know, but some of the things that you say to cut a man, he can feel it in his thing. Like you will make it draw up inside him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all don't understand the things that y'all can say. And when you make a man feel like that, he will never look at you the same. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so a lot of dudes can't even address the things that a woman can say that make them, you know what I'm saying? That cut them so deep, that make that stuff not work no more. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
they don't even want to address that. It's easier to just go to a different woman.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point. I think that sometimes it's a mother wound that's unhealed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You never really got to, because, you know, going with the same scenario, you know, you have if your mother's doing it all, she's a single mother. You know what I mean? There may be some areas that you don't get your needs met. You know what I mean? Because she can't be everywhere at once. She can't be at work and be at home at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, or you may resent your mother because your father isn't in your life. You know what I mean? And you know, do, and I think some older men still feel that way. They're still stuck there. Like, oh, you know, why isn't the man? Why, you know, it's a restraining order. They kept my mother, you know, kept my father away. You know, sometimes we have to sit with that, and it first of all, identify what hurts you, where that pain is, and be able to separate that, what happened in that situation, from every other woman that you're going to encounter, or every other man that you're going to encounter. All of those things, and father wounds as well. You know what I mean? You might have a bias toward, you might put yourself out there more than necessary because you wanted to save your mother. You know what I mean? You wanted to be the hero. So now you're out there 30, 40, 50 years old trying to save somebody that don't want to be saved. You know what I mean? You trying to, you just extending, you feel like you express your love through your money. All these different issues that we run into because we haven't healed from our childhood. But part of that is we've taught, the thing that I was taught was keep it moving. You know what I mean? If you get hit, just pop up, keep it moving. Don't cry, none of that. So we don't take time to just acknowledge that hurt me.
I was about to say that.
Why did that hurt?
I didn't want to say that. Like, I was hurt. Yeah. A lot of men won't even acknowledge that they were actually hurt. Like, a lot of their issues with women, even if the root of it is with the issues that they had within their own mother, they don't want to even say, like, I was hurt. You know, that hurt me. Because a lot of, it's like, as a man, your first love is your mom. Tell people all the time, men, I say it all the time, men are emotional. And men love that. That's why even as babies, little baby boys are more prone to crying than baby girls, because boys are very emotional. They're more Velcro babies are going to be boys than girls. There's something there within that mother-son connection. It's something there. And a lot of times when a boy feels that first hurt, it hits him so hard where it takes actual work to get over that. And they have not done the work to get over that. And they're trying to pretend like it doesn't matter. They're trying to pretend like, you know, they can just sweep it. You know, it will not go away. They don't want to. Not baby boys are actually more prone to crying. You can look it up. There's actually research behind it. Baby boys they are more prone to crying. It's not about how you feel about it. It's true. Yeah, Velcro. You're more likely to have a Velcro boy than a Velcro girl. Yeah, it's just men don't even want to admit that we are emotional creatures, extremely emotional creatures. Look at prisons, look at jails, look at all of these things happen because men were reacting out of their emotions.
Right.
It's just that we're taught that anger and rage are not emotions. These are emotions. Most men Even the things that men deem are manly. They say, "Oh, man is a soldier in a war," and okay, we look at a soldier. Your soldier, that's an emotional thing. That's not logical. It doesn't make any logical sense to go to a foreign country and get blown away from people who don't know you.
Yeah.
That's an emotional connection. The things that they say, honor, valor, courage, all of these things are emotions. Honor, valor, these are things that you feel. You have patriotism. That's an emotional connection. Everything that men say makes men manly is emotions. When you look at professional sports, when you're in the locker room right before you go out there, that's an emotion. We're riling you up emotionally. Boxing, we need you to get emotional. Like, men are their best when they're emotional. Like, if men realize that, then they would realize that nobody can love better than a man. Most women who are not completely angry will still admit that nothing feels better than being truly and wholly and faithfully loved by a man. Truthfully and faithfully loved by a man. It's just that men, don't do that, so they have to, women are reacting to men not doing that. But overall, a lot of men, if they were to just realize that they're emotional, and so many things, so much shit could be resolved. Like, women love being loved by a man. Oh, they love that. Women aren't just these angry people who hate men. There's a few, but as a collective, they don't. Like, they know what it feels like to have that feeling. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. And men just don't want to be that. They don't want to admit that. They would rather fight their own nature. That's why nothing works, because they're constantly fighting who they really are. Men are emotional. Like, when a man cries, the whole, oh my God, don't let it be women anywhere. He can make a whole room of women cry. Like, women lose it if a man cries. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't understand that a man's power is in his emotion.
You took me back to the song, like, "We're the man," like
seriously.
R&B, like, rhythm and blues and music has changed so much over the last 50, 60 years, because it used to be, even if it wasn't in day-to-day existence, you could turn on a song and that song celebrated like love, not just sex, but love. You know what I mean? Like, just being in love, just
like, when the songs of that time are still popular and they still resonate, and you still feel them because these were men putting their emotions out. Girl, I love you. Yeah. Like, he felt that. You can't just do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to feel that. And that shit hits. And that's what men don't understand. Like, you can do, a man who knows how to be emotionally mature and also emotionally expressive, you wouldn't have to worry about all these issues. Like, all these conversations are so remedial. Oh, submission,
Yeah.
The women, oh my God, women would love, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's not, that's why I say all of men's issues are all self-inflicted. That's why it is hard to have sympathy for men. That's why they say society doesn't have sympathy for men. But it's because all of men's issues are self-inflicted. Men would rather hold on to the snake that's biting them than just to let the motherfucker go. Just let it go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you get it. It's hurt. All of these, because I don't care who you are. You know that this shit is not who you are. You know that a lot of this performance shit that you're doing is not, that's not you. You're not happy. But they don't want to just let it go.
I wanted to ask you another question in tandem to that. Like, in what ways does a lack of sexual maturity lend to things like homophobia, transphobia, and misogyny? And what do you think would help boys or young men achieve more sexual maturity?
Okay. A lack of sexual maturity that leads to those things. Okay. When you have a group of men, you have men as a collective, conditioned to believe that their manhood is tied to what's inside their pants and their sexual conquest, then anything that direct challenges that or goes against that would be seen as a threat. Meaning, if what it means to be a man is to have sexual conquest over women, but you're a gay dude, that's you know what I'm saying? Like you're a direct contrast to what I view as a man. So that's where you get a lot of that's homophobia. That's not what it means to be a man. You are direct what do you mean you want to be a man? That's a direct contrast. You're going against what it means to be a man. What it means to be a man is to sexually conquer women. You are the exact opposite of that. I need to fight that. And all of the other phobias, transphobia and all that. Well, if my conquest on being a man involves me conquering females, you present as a female, but you're biologically female, that is a threat to me. Now let me fight that. That's transphobia. You know, it's like developing a maturity where your identity as a man is rooted up here versus down there, then you're not going to be threatened by then things like homophobia wouldn't be a thing. Things like transphobia wouldn't be a thing because they are not. It wouldn't be a threat to you if you are a cisgender heterosexual man. It doesn't make any logical sense for you to be angry with a homosexual man because he is not threatening you whatsoever. Right. He doesn't want the same things that you want, and he has no control over. He cannot take. He can't take you. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're not going to be with him intimately. So there's no reason to have this homophobia because there's no threat there. If you are a cisgender heterosexual man and you're not pansexual, you're a heterosexual man, then the transphobia will be going away because this person cannot do anything, that this person is not attacking any form of your ideology. They're not attacking your masculinity. They're not doing anything to you. They cannot, they're not a threat exactly whatsoever. So I think that just comes with just developing a maturity that what it means to be a man starts up here. It's not down there. So anything that threatens you conquering females, it's not a threat.
Oh, big facts. I think it's interrelated in that way because it goes to that balance, right? Because we're taking attributes that belong to all human beings, assertiveness, being leadership, being self-starter. What are all those things that you attribute to masculinity? And we're saying, or just we attribute those to masculinity and other human attributes that all humans have to femininity, and we're saying, pick a side, blood or crip. You know what I mean? Exactly. which way you man? And if you are looking like you're going to switch sides or something like that, or no, because it's blood in or blood out. You know what I mean? No, you are assigned this, and you're going to be this. Because if too many people move around or find themselves in a spectrum instead of a binary, well, then we're losing control. It's much easier to control people when you ask closing-ended questions. Yes or no, male or female. You know what I mean? All those different things. So, but in that, the individual is lost. Like, who are you as an individual? Who are you as a person? You know what I mean? What are your personal values and how do you express them? I was talking to a gentleman. This was about a month or two ago, and he was saying how he knew a friend of his that was just an excellent dancer, beautiful dancer. You know what I mean? Would turn every party out. But then one person told him that wasn't manly. Wasn't manly to do that. You know what I mean? And he just never danced again because he valued his perceived masculinity or his manhood way more than he valued his ability, his talent to dance. You know what I mean? Which is something
Absolutely.
that he was gifted with.
Mhm.
And I
That
see
goes
so
into the whole gymnastics thing. Like,
yeah.
you know how many dudes in the hood was flipping on concrete like it was nothing?
Yep.
Crazy flips all over. You know, it's that's what I mean. They would rather hold on to something that they know is hurting them. I don't care who you are. If you are a man in our society, you killed a certain part of yourself for toxic masculinity, whether you want to admit it or not. You
Yeah.
killed some aspect of yourself. I'll never forget, like when I was in 5th grade, I went to a new school, and this was school. It was hood. I went to first hood school. Oh my god! And in that school, 'cause I was extremely like super smart. I was like a fucking prodigy. But in that school, it wasn't like cool to be like a smart boy. It really
Right.
wasn't. Um, and so 5th to 7th grade, it was a big learning curve for me. And part of that learning curve to shift back into being, you know, a cool, happy student that, you know, flourished within my peers, I had to dumb myself down. Um, I had to not pay attention to be cooler. You know, I would get C's on purpose. You know what I'm saying? But then my standardized test would be through the roof, and they were just like, "What's going on?" You know, I was one of those,
Yeah.
and it was because that wasn't, you know, that wasn't cool. You know, and it's like there's so many guys that do things like that. I knew one of my friends. He was an excellent violin player. Could kill it on the violin. Gave that up.
So real quick, if you don't follow Chad already, please make sure you follow him. We want to make sure that we show love. If you're not following me, make sure you follow me. Let's get the likes up if we could. I would love it if we could get to 20,000 likes. That would be awesome. Please do share the live. If we could get up to 100, I would love that as well. And we're gonna open it up in a few minutes. Just to for Q&A if you still have some time. So wanted to move in and talk about dysfunction just a little bit as far as like how do you think like things like sexual addiction, pornography, and compulsive sexuality affect men's ability to form authentic male relationships?
That's a good question. Because it separates, because something is basic as sex. That is something that at its basic core takes a connection. There needs to be a bond there. There needs to be a interpersonal development of getting to know the person on a certain level. But with the internet and internet corn, that has taken away the human aspect of that. So once that person goes into an addiction, that addiction then grows and grows and grows to the point where they need more extremes to satisfy them. You know, it grows into they need harder and harder stuff. And unfortunately, the harder stuff separates you further and further from the humanity of the person. Even when you look at the way videos are, they are extremely male centered. There's nothing pleasurable for the woman there whatsoever. It is borderline assault. If the things that happen in those situations happen in real life, it would literally just be assault.
Right.
You know, and that completely separates the humanity of it. So you have especially younger guys who have not developed that ability to, they're not developed that skill set of those social skills, of building those up, of what it really takes to court somebody to the finish line, to walk them to the finish line. You're going to have a group of socially awkward guys that need level 10 situations to achieve fulfillment And when you put those two things together, it's just a recipe for assault and disaster.
You bring up several good points. You made me think about, oddly enough, that last Batman movie. Like, because the last Batman movie, like the where it had the dude from Twilight as Bruce Wayne, he was basically facing off against an incel. The Riddler was basically an incel dude that was like very socially awkward, but it escalated into violence. And I feel like because you're spending more time fantasizing instead of like actually having communication and interaction, all these different stereotypes, I guess positive or negative, just build up that don't have any basis in reality. You know what I mean? So the build up is so much that when you deal with an actual person, it's like, this is it. Wait a minute, there's got to be more. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I would just say, like, relax. You know what I mean? It's necessary to just relax and get acclimated to talking to other people. Get out from under that, because again, a woman is not promised to you. A man is not promised to you. Everyone has their own autonomy. If you can't, going back all the way back to our first question, if you don't have respect, you cannot have love. Love without respect is useless. So, if you want to have a loving relationship, first learn how to respect people, respect their boundaries, and appreciate their humanity. I'm gonna think here. The enthusiastic consent. Like, what is still related and still kind of in that, but as far as like, how do you think that relates to attaining enthusiastic consent, and what are some of the pitfalls that you think men run into when it comes to having, trying to express their full sexual selves?
Some of the pitfalls with attaining enthusiastic consent is just a severe lack of social skills. You have to be able to walk that person to the finish line, even when, so let's say there's a situation and both parties know exactly what they planned on doing. She comes over, she sits on the edge of the bed. A lot of guys in that situation still cannot even walk her to the finish. A lot of women will say, okay, I know what I'm here for, but I still need you to, walk me to the finish line, coach, and that, without that, you're not going to get that enthusiastic consent. That's why it's so hard that's why consent is such a, consent versus coercion.
Yeah.
It's such a challenge when it's like so many guys don't understand that. It's like they have so many challenges when it comes to a woman wanting you to walk her to the finish line versus coercion. Those are two different things. She just, to have someone, to walk someone to the finish line, they want you to connect emotionally. They want you to make them feel comfortable in their decision. She wants you to make her feel that she is safe in all of these different things. Coercion is, my ego is telling me that I need to do this. It's like, it's that man part. It's like they feel like this an attack to their masculinity. So it goes down that path of coercion where, nah, I need to run some game. I need to do this. I need to convince you a little bit more. Nah, you just playing games. You want this, and that's the disconnect that a lot of people don't see.
Now, I feel like one, it needs to be said that consent is something that is can be. It's like, how you have employment and it's like it's an at-will state. Like, well, we can fire you at any time for any reason. Consent is like that. Consent is something that can be revoked at any time for any reason. So just because you're texting with somebody and y'all going back and forth and everybody's into it or whatever, and they fly across the world, get to you, they drive to your hotel, they're in your bed, you are, completely off, getting, and they say, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
That they don't want to do anymore. It's not a contract that there is no expiration date on any time that can be revoked. Even if you're in the midst of the act,
Absolutely.
this doesn't feel right. I
Absolutely.
want to
It's
stop.
like, yeah, I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter. So I say, it doesn't matter what I said in those text messages. Nothing matters until we meet each other in person. Like all that shit is all out the window. If you meet somebody, it doesn't matter what they were saying. Because if you meet them and they don't feel that same connection with you, they're not obligated to do anything with you. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you flew them in, if you paid for their dinner, you did all these things. If they finally meet you and they smell your breath, you don't get to do these. There's so many different things that you don't get to know about a person until you're actually in their face. They didn't know that your breath was going to stink. They didn't know that. So there's so many different ways that you can get turned off, but it's like they don't understand. They're like, well, no, you knew what this was when I flew you out. No, that's the difference between that consent versus coercion thing.
Yeah.
It's like, just because you flew her out, she can still be turned off. You can still turn her off.
Big facts. Then the other thing is like I think a common form of coercion that men don't think is coercion is the use of drugs and alcohol. If you're trying to get somebody drunk or you're trying to get somebody high in order to sleep with them, that's a form of coercion. You're trying to get them out of their normal state of mind where they can make right decisions, where they're now, cognitively impaired in order to get them to sleep with you. That's coercion. You know what I mean? That's, you know what I mean? How far do you go? I mean, it's not always mean you're just dropping something in somebody's drink. It could just be,
Right.
I'm buying you, feeding you drinks. You know what I mean?
And it's like, that's a really good point, because a lot of men don't even realize that they're actually hurting themselves too, because a lot of men can't even, it's like they have to get drunk and high and all this other stuff just for them to be able to do it themselves.
Right.
You know what I mean? Dudes, like, it's a shame, because ED is not normal. You know what I'm saying? But there are so many guys in their 20s that are using honey packs and Hennessy and all this other stuff just to even get to the finish line, just to even be able to have that. And it's like, you're relying on substances too much at an early age, when it takes emotional maturity and emotional intelligence. A lot of guys, they don't realize that you're not a teenager anymore. Like, once you're in your 20s, especially late 20s, you can't just rub up against the tree and it turns on like a light switch. But they think that it's something wrong with them. So they immediately start relying more on substances. They rely more on, oh, I gotta get drunk. I need my Hennessy. I need my blunt. Let me go get a honey pack from the gas station. And now that things like that are becoming socially acceptable, like that's like the trippy kid, that's the turn up kid. But it's not normal. It's not normal. None of that should be required. If you cannot if you do not want to do that when you are stone sober, then why do it? Why are you putting yourself at risk for, health issues, for babies, for all these things, for something when you don't really want to do it? I tell people all the time, if you got to get out of your mind just to engage with somebody sexually, then don't do it. That's your body's way of telling you that you don't want it.
Right.
You people, when you want it, you should naturally. It's like people have gotten away from the first step. The first step in that is you have to get horny first. You know what I'm saying? Like, that person has to make you feel like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Naturally. And if that's your body's way of telling you the direction that you should go, but you're blocking your natural, this is your natural compass through life by only being able by getting this feeling for any and everything.
And I think you bring up a good topic too, because also we got to eat better. I mean, we got to eat better, drink more water. You know what I mean? The way we treat our bodies in general lends to degeneracy. You know what I mean? We get older faster because we're a whole bunch of fast food. You know what I mean? All we do, all that stuff is going to affect your body in one way or another. The other point that you brought up, with the use of alcohol, especially if you don't know the person, like this is not your mate. This is not your partner. Y'all haven't been dating for 2 years. This is somebody you just met, and on your first encounter, you're trying to get this person drunk. Because the gentleman, it was in here before talking about false allegations. Sometimes it's not false allegations. It's just that you put yourself in a poor legal situation. Because if you're getting somebody impaired, yeah, they may seem like they want to know, but then they wake up like, oh my gosh, you took advantage of me.
Exactly.
You thought they were good, but they weren't in their right state of mind.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what's socially acceptable, because look at the Bill Cosby case and all that other stuff. Was it socially the norm? Yeah, but was this wrong? Yeah, it was. Yes, it was. Was it socially the norm for women to, want a Quaalude and all that? Yeah, they were doing that. Yeah, but it does not mean that it was not right, that it was not wrong. It was wrong. So I tell people all the time, think about where you are now. Is it socially acceptable? They want to get turned up, they want to pop whatever, pop pill, whatever. Yeah, but does that mean that it is right? Because you know what the intentions are. It's the intention of lowering someone's inhibitions so that eventually you will have sex. You know that is not right. But because it is currently socially acceptable to smoke a blunt, get drunk, all this other stuff before it go down, people don't really look at it as, they don't look at it for what it really is. And what it really is
it's the difference between obtaining like legal consent based on your state and ethical consent. You know what I mean? Legal consent may change. You know what I mean?
Right.
You rolling the dice. You know what I mean? If you don't know all the laws, it might be a difference depending on what state you're in. But ethical consent is based on who you are and who you want to be. And that's where I think like the enthusiastic consent is. You want somebody, again, if you value yourself enough, your body, you want someone who is in their right mind that wants you as much as you want them.
Absolutely. I mean? And people, what will really help with that is going back to, if they cannot make you feel that fire, rage, that when you are stone sober, then that's just not who you're supposed to be with sexually. You don't, right. It's okay. You don't have to have sex with everybody that you meet. And I think that's kind of like a lot of men feel like they should, like they have to, like even if they don't do it, she's gonna think something wrong with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. Oh, I kind of have to try, but no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't. If you don't feel it, you don't feel it. And there's so many dudes who feel like they have to where they get to the point where that's why they're doing so many enhancements so early, because they're forcing their body to do something that they don't want. And all that's doing is, when you're pumping in these hormones into your body so early, once you get to like 40, like dudes messing themselves up. That's all I'm saying. And what it really does is it also leads to a wave of hypersexuality at a very young age. So many people don't even realize that to be a freak, like that takes a lot of fucking energy, a lot of time, a lot of, you know what I'm saying? It takes a lot of your day. It takes a lot of your life. So it's like you're putting so much energy into something that has a zero outcome. You're putting so much energy into sex and sexual conquest when it doesn't net you anything, versus taking that same energy and applying it to different aspects of your life where you would actually get an outcome. And so many people are now like, well, I'm a freak, I'm doing all this other stuff. But it's like, are you a freak or are you just unemployed? Are you a freak or are you just underemployed? Are you a freak or are you just bored? You know?
Because what are you trying to prove?
Exactly.
What are you trying to prove?
It is going to net you. It doesn't net you anything. It doesn't net you anything. But it takes a lot. It's a lot. Especially, all the pre-game people, it's, So all this leads to so much stuff. There's so many um, so much collateral damage that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention, I mean, especially if you're not using the right protection, you know, what I mean, you're opening, even if you're using protection, you open yourself up to other people. You know what I mean? So that's another piece of it. And I think there's a difference between having a body count conversation and having a sexual health conversation. I mean, both of those things, like
Mm-hmm.
sexual health is important. You know what I mean? However you slice it. Last question, and then I don't know what your time like. If you want to do Q&A, we certainly can.
Yeah, that's
We'll
fine.
open it.
Okay, I'm free.
Okay, cool, cool. What are some things that men can do to heal their sexual selves?
Um, Only have sex with people who you want to be with without any inebriation. If you gotta get any type of drunk, smoke, anything, then that's not who you want to be with. Get to that point because that's your body's natural compass. Like your body tells you, your body, if you look internally, your body's gonna guide you where you need to be. You know, your body it doesn't react to this person, not because there's something wrong with you, because that's
Yeah,
not the person you're supposed to be with. You're not supposed to be with. You're not supposed to knock down everything you see, you know?
yeah,
So get to that point where you're only um, where you're only having sex with people who turn you on naturally. Um, develop Become more emotionally intelligent. Like for me, like this I'm only speaking from experience. Like if it's not going to be good, I don't do it. Like I'm not. I think that's something you learn like when you're in your early 20s. Like, and I learned pretty quick. I was like, that whole fucking the fuck just do it. It's like, what's the point? It's not even good. It's
yeah,
not even good. It's literally you're just like you're just doing something, and it's just like after a while, I was like, what the fuck am I doing this shit for? I only do it if I know it's going to be good. If I know it's going to be like that. So that eliminates a lot of the bullshit. Um, not being Don't be scared to express up front what you like and what you don't like. So many people are going through the motions and they're doing stuff to that other person that person don't even like. You know what I'm saying? It's just like
yeah,
it's like, but they didn't even. It's like, would you get into a barber's chair and not tell that barber how you want your haircut first? Would you do anything without telling them first how you want it done?
yeah,
Have a consultation, not a consultation, but let it be known what you like, what you don't like. Make it, of course, don't make it awkward, but you have to have these social skills. You have to have this ability to be able to open up your mouth and verbalize how you want someone to please you. Because the only purpose in having sex is pleasure and reproduction. So if you are not reproducing and if you're not receiving pleasure, then what the fuck are you doing?
right.
The only, if you're not planning on, I'm going to sit down here and make a baby, you're only doing it right for pleasure. Okay, so why isn't this a pleasurable experience for you? Why does it feel like you're just doing something on a to-do list? That makes no sense. Like be able to say out of your mouth, like verbalize that stuff. And that will narrow down the quality, the amount of sex that you have. You're only going to have high quality sex. You're only going to have sex with people that you have an emotional connection for. So even if you're not in any type of relationship, you're going to be able to have that person, you're going to enjoy each other. You're going to have repeat offenders.
Yeah,
So you're not going to have to constantly be out there searching for new conquests. It's like when I see dudes in their 30s and they're still on the prowl, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, that just means you got some trash. You must got some trash dick, because why don't you have a steady flow of repeat offenders? If I ever needed it, I don't have to go look for nothing new. Just call somebody I've been with forever.
right.
You have more quality. Like, why are you going out here engaging with somebody that you will never see again? Somebody that you don't even know their real first name. Somebody that if something bad did happen to you, you could not track them down. You could not give the people any information on this person. They're like, well, who gave it to you? Well, I don't know. Their name was, cheeks for days. You know, just like, how, you know, is that where you want to be? Is that the feeling you want to have? You know, you just having quality, meaningful connections. It doesn't, like, my whole thing is, it doesn't have to be the real thing, but in the moment, it needs to feel like the real thing.
Right.
We grown. We know what this is. But at the end of the day, in this moment, yes, it feels real. Like, yes, all of that. We're married and all of it. Yeah, that's what it needs to be. Because if it's not that, then don't do it. Find something else to do with your time. You know, you're wasting your time.
No, absolutely. I would say, like, in conjunction with that, going, just first of all, knowing yourself, like really getting to know, like, who you are, and maybe even like journaling what your motivations are. Like, okay, this turns you on. Where does that come from? You know what I mean? Because I know, like, for me personally, I know that, like, my sexual self evolved out of my childhood. Different things that happened to me in my childhood helped to evolve my sexual self. So at first, that kind of is compulsory. Where it's just like, you want something, you don't necessarily know why you want it, or you have a certain behavior or a certain way to approach it. You don't necessarily know why you approach it that way. Doing your own shadow work and understanding where some of those things come from will help you separate the negative aspects of certain behaviors to the positive behaviors. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, now this is healthy. Now it's something that I can fully express. Knowing your type and why you have your type. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I think, like, or a couple people that they like their partners kind of broken. they like the people that they can fix or can feel good about. Kind of being a lifesaver to someone else or someone that. But so sometimes, like, our broken pieces, the broken pieces that are in you, seek out the broken pieces in other people. You know what I mean? If you're wondering, like, man, why do I continue to get these people that are broken in this way? Well, it may be something that's broken in you that's connecting with their brokenness in them, and trying to, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't, your better half is not two halves coming together and making a whole. No, it's one whole person connected with another whole person. So as you heal yourself, then you can connect with other people that are healed, or are you still doing healing work, but that are moving in that direction. You know what I mean? There's some people that we connect with, and it can be the worst thing that happens in our life. Like, everything else could be doing good. Your profession, your money's right. You know what I mean? Your familial connections is right, but you continue to connect with poor partners that bring you down, and it can mess all of that up. You know what I mean? Just takes the time to have the wrong connection with somebody, but you have to think about why. Why am I attracted to this person? What does this type of person do for me? And sometimes you can, in knowing that, manage that situation, because now you know why it is. You still like what you like, but at least you know why you like what you like, and you can manage it. And the other ways, it'll be like, that's not my thing anymore. I used to like milk, now I don't like milk anymore. I like orange juice. You know what I mean? So our tastes and desires evolve as we evolve. But I think sometimes we get stuck in relational dysfunction because we haven't done enough searching in ourselves to really look at the parts that hurt. You know what I mean? That don't feel good, and say, okay, this is what I'm looking for from another person to give me, but I can actually give some of that to myself. You know what I mean? And then I can enjoy that still with another person, but it's not like I have to get this other component from this person. You know what I mean? Right. So I feel that's
like, in romantic relationships, a lot of men's issues would be solved if they had the balls to just love who they lusted, to just love to love and accept who they lusted for.
Yeah.
There are so many, it's like, as a man, like, what really just gets you. That person, that type of person that just gets you right there. You know what I'm saying? Shoot you through the roof. Oh my God. But that person or that type of person may not be socially acceptable, or they may not look good on your arm, or they might not be for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? So many men get themselves into situations where they get the person who is socially acceptable just to ruin their life, not ruin their life, but to hurt them by going after what they truly want. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's like, if men had the balls to just love who they lusted for, because like I said, it's kind of go back to our first question. Like, sex is a bigger deal than most people admit. Is it a need? No. But is it necessary for a man to operate in his fullness? Absolutely. So if a man loves the same person that he has that fiery lust for, then so many issues will be, you know, I believe that men can be monogamous. Men can be all these things, you know what I'm saying? But they're pairing themselves with people that they don't have that true lust for. Because I know for a fact, when I'm in relationships, I'm monogamous. Absolutely. I've done it for years. But that's because I have accepted that I love who I lust. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I only enter into relationships with people who I have that extreme for. So you don't have to worry about me cheating on you for sex or anything like that, because you get me there. This is what I want. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And in doing that, I also have accepted that I have to also be okay with loving and accepting everything that comes along with that person. That person may not have A, B, and C, or they may not be as strong in A, B, and C, but that does not matter, because the thing that is going to keep me there, the thing that is going to, I'm more willing to compromise for somebody that I have that strong, more open. So many things, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that comes from just accepting that this is who I like. And it's not the type of person I like. It's not detrimental to who I am. But I have tried those things of being with someone who makes sense on paper, but without that emotional passion there, I wasn't open to negotiating as much. They got on my nerves easier. The things that they did annoyed me more. I wasn't able to compromise as much. I wasn't able to, I felt like, being with them intimately was more of a chore than a desire. And I had to learn that's not going to work for me. And I think a lot of people have not gotten to that point. They think that they can be with somebody because they make sense on paper, or that's who they're supposed to be with from a societal level. But without that, especially for a man, like men are emotional, especially without that, he's not going to want to he's not going to work with that person. Like when I'm with the people that I date, I am very compromising. I'm understanding. I am all of these things because that passion is what causes me to feel them. You know what I'm saying? Like a man has to feel you.
That's
Go on.
I think that's a powerful way to close out this segment. Is a man has to feel. A man has to feel, and there's so many things that tell us not to. To shut down, to close ourselves off. And if you're all closed up in here, like how can you love somebody else? Like really, And it's a difference between how you treat if the way you treat your partner is the same way you treat the world. Like you're on a battlefield, you're so guarded. If you have to be guarded around this person, that shouldn't be your partner. Everybody has their natural protections, but if it's like you don't feel like you can communicate, you don't feel you can trust this person, you don't feel you can be vulnerable with them, you're not attracted, you're not being fair to that person.
Mm-hmm.
You're not being fair to yourself either.
You're not. You're not. And it's like, that's why I say most of men's problems are self-inflicted. holding on to things that we know do not serve us. You know that, you don't feel this person, but you're taking this person to the point of you're engaged, and now you married this person, and you knew deep down that you did not feel that. You knew deep down that you did not feel that person. So you become a more difficult spouse. You are not, you're not compromising. You don't understand their emotional issues. And then you get to the point where now you're cheating. And then it's like when it all falls apart, it's like, well, they don't even acknowledge that you knew deep down that you did not feel her. You knew you didn't feel that situation. You knew that it was times. Whether they used to be or not, so many men would have been happier instead of going down that road with the, nuclear family, American white picket fence, and all stuff that we're supposed to have. A lot of men would have been truly happier as like flight attendants, flying all over the world, no kids, and just, being with different girls all over the world, because that's what you truly want. Is it socially acceptable to say that out loud? No. But deep down, you never wanted that. You never wanted these kids and this why you never wanted that. You didn't feel that. But you felt like that was your only option. You felt like you didn't have a choice. And you went down this road, and you did all this shit, and now you feel like you stuck with it, and you're miserable, and you're miserable, so you lash out at her, you lash out, you're the terrible father, you lash out at all the things, you hate your job, and you hate your life, because deep down, you never wanted that. You would have been happy being free, but you did not have the guts to admit it to yourself.
It's big facts. Big facts. So we're gonna open it up for those of you that for those of you that have questions, like you can pose your question in the chat, or if you want to come up, we'll take guests one at a time that want to share, either ask a question or make a comment about what you've heard today. Again, the topic on the Will to Change project today was male sexual being, and kind of really talking about I think really core issues, man, really core foundational issues. Chaddrion, I thank you for sharing. I really think it was a critical conversation to have. Especially now.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Absolutely. There was one thing I was trying to tie it back, because it was tying back to love, and I can't. It'll come to me. I should have said that first, because it was something you said. I was like, oh man, that goes right back to love again. As far as we were talking about cheating, and it's like because Glitter said that attraction can fade, and what I would say there is, if that's very true, but if you're committed in a long-term relationship, the key or the trick to that is finding ways to fall in love again and finding new ways to be attractive. Because it's one thing to be in love with someone as far as who they were to you. You had a moment or a season and y'all really connected, and then that was great. But it's another thing to be able to transcend that season and find new ways to be in love on each new season. I think sometimes, because it's not just about whether you can stay with someone, it's about whether you can grow with them, because that person is not going to remain the same. They might change religions. They might change, jobs. You might change locations. They might, they might lose an arm. All these different things can happen to this person. And it's like, not only are you committed to that person and who they were to you and what you get, but who they are and how they're going to grow, and them being able to choose what that growth looks like. I think what sometimes causes heterosexual relationships to fail is because of patriarchy. Men don't want their women to grow. It's like you want them to stay in this box of woman, and then for you, instead of allowing them to grow, whether I want to do a career, I want to go to school, all these different things. If you stifle somebody's dreams and you stifle somebody's expression of who they are, it's going to turn into resentment. You know what I mean? And what you described before, I think, was the other side of it, where a man is like stifling who they are because they want to fit into this box, and they because that's what society's told them they have to be a man, or be masculine, or be whatever. I don't know, but it's not who they actually are, and so because of that, you resent the other people around you, even though they didn't do nothing to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You resenting kids.
Yeah, absolutely. They do, because they deep down they did not want to admit it. Aisha says, are you all really looking for a good woman, or just talking about I think a lot of men just talk about it because they don't want to love the person that they really love. They say that they want a good woman that has this A, B, C, D, E, F, G traits, but they will cheat on that one when they finally get her for the woman that makes them feel that deep down inside. And men don't have the guts to love that person that makes them feel that way. There's so much pressure from patriarchy to be with this person that you're told that you should be with.
Right.
And when they get with that person, they know when they're walking down the aisle that they don't feel it like that. They know that. Like, men, I think that men are more capable than a lot of people think. Like, as far as men are capable of being monogamous, men are capable of so much, but they don't allow themselves to do that. Like, a man knows who he really loves. Like, he knows, who you feel like, you know that. And so many men are in situations and relationships and marriages with women that they know that deep down they truly don't love like that. They know that. That is why they are the terrible partners that they are. It isn't that they don't have the capacity to be better. They're trying to be in a situation that they know that they're not happy in, but they don't want to admit it. Like, they don't want to admit that they have also been brainwashed by patriarchy, and they're doing what they have been told what to do. They are living a life that they truly are not happy with, and they're lashing out at everybody. So it isn't necessarily your fault, but he just is not happy. But why? Like, phone a friend of you can't figure it out. But why? But because men will never like what they don't like. They will try to, they will pretend, they will get it together for a few weeks or a few months, but deep down, a man will never like what he don't like. It makes sense, it makes paper, but deep down, they will never love that person like that person deserves to be loved. It does not matter how good that person is to them. They will just not do it.
Asia says that's where real love and honest communication comes in. People are supposed to grow. It's dope to grow together.
Yes, absolutely. It is dope to grow together with the person that you're supposed to be with. Men, and by far and large, do the selecting. So this is I'm going to put more fault on the men for this, because men, you selected her. You asked her to marry you. You chose her. And deep down, you knew that you were choosing her for whatever reasons, but you knew it wasn't because you really, truly felt her. The one you felt is the one you cheated on her with. That's who you really felt.
Do you think that some of that goes into like the Madonna horror complex? Like,
yeah, a lot of that goes into the Madonna horror complex. Men, it's like a natural part of the man's psyche, because men cannot fuck the things that they love. It takes emotional maturity to bring these two things together. Like, you have your sex, and then you have the things that you love. And it's like women say, oh, well, he always wants to be around his friends, because he loves his friends for lack of, to the best of his ability. He loves his friends. He loves his mother. He loves his sister. He cherishes his friends. He values his friends because he doesn't want to fuck them. But the things that he wants to fuck, he doesn't love them the same way.
Right.
That's why kind of like when men get closer to loving you, a lot of women will even admit it, it's the sex changes. It's because men draw from that, like that internal, like that dog, that beast that's inside of a man to just want to dominate and conquer. So when they can't pull from that anymore, because you actually love and respect and value this person as a human being,
Right.
that's when it takes the emotional maturity to actually fuck something that you love.
No, absolutely. That I think, and with what Aisha is asking, I think that goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation when we were asking the question, okay, do men have the capability to love? And I don't think it's that men don't have the capability or capacity to love, but when you get into the practicality of it, it's like, okay, well, how do you love me if you cheat on me, right? How do you love me if you don't view me as an actual human being on par with you? Like, how do you love me if you don't really invest in my potential and my dreams? How do you love me if you don't respect my choices and respect my bodily autonomy? Like, how do you? So you get all these questions on how do you love me if, and when you get into the practicality of it, a lot of times men come up short because for several reasons. You know what I mean? But I think part of that starts back again to that foundation of the way men are conditioned to think about women. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I feel like part of what do they say when man, I'm gonna make an honest man out of him. When a man gets married, it's like you should already be an honest man. Why does
Mhm.
someone else have to make an honest man out of you, right? But I think part of that is because as a man, as a single man, when you're in pursuit, you're using those deceptive skills, you know what I mean, to get what you want. You're using that coercion. And I think, especially in times past, that was socially acceptable, even though it wasn't
Absolutely.
right, right? But now you're
Absolutely.
becoming this honest man when you get married. And I think men struggle with that transition
Yeah,
as they.
absolutely. And it's like men. It's amazing how men have the ability to draw on their emotions when it comes time to use them for manipulation, but they don't have
Right.
the ability to draw on their emotions to be vulnerable. Like a man has no problem. A man can cry on the spot when he was caught cheating and then she about to leave. He could cry instantly on the spot, get on his knees, real tears, snot, everything. But when
Right.
he's actually hurting and he needs to be vulnerable, he cannot show that side. It's like men are so emotional that men have the ability to draw on their emotions, but they only use that ability when they want to emotionally manipulate a woman.
Right.
It's like it's like catch a man cheating. You will never, the man that you have never seen cry before, he will cry. Oh, he will cry on the spot. Best actor performance ever. He give everything. He gonna give you everything he got. You're gonna see emotions within this man that you didn't even know that he had. Because he's using those emotions to manipulate. I tell people all the time, y'all gotta, men are emotional. Y'all gotta remember that shit. Like, men have the ability to draw on emotions, to emotionally manipulate you. Like, men have the ability to make you feel them. And a lot of men use that to their advantage. But when it comes to taking that mask off and showing you who they really are, that's what's really hard.
Yeah.
The only two times I see men cry, exactly. Why not just tell the person you are with what you needing out of the relationship? Because most men who are in relationships, they're in relationships with the wrong person. And they know that they are. They're in relationships for so many reasons other than deep down, this is who I really want. They're in relationships because of what she does for me, or she held me down, or I kind of, she did right by me. But that's not who they really want. They don't want to just say that. They don't want to just admit that. A lot of men have been, I told you, men are just as women are socially programmed by the patriarchy, men are the same thing. Like, men are brainwashed just as much as women are. So many men are programmed to believe that they are supposed to want these certain things. They're supposed to want the same things that y'all want. So in order to do this, they're going to be with somebody that they don't necessarily feel, just like you might be with somebody that you don't necessarily feel either, but they make sense. You can mentally trick the difference between men and women is because women are so mental. Women, y'all can mentally manipulate yourselves into loving somebody that you didn't love. Y'all can convince yourselves into y'all can manipulate your own minds into loving somebody that you did not feel just because the man is a good man. A man is emotional. He has to feel it. So that's why you have so many. That's why so many men have had good women versus women having a good man. Most men can say that they've had at least one good woman. So many women can say that they have never had one good man, and that is because men that's because women, y'all can love somebody just because they're good to you. You can love somebody just because they treat you right and they deserve. You can love somebody just because they deserve to be loved. Men can't. It does not. It's so many men who have such good women in their lives and they just can't. They try and they know that she's a good one, but they cannot treat her the way that she deserves to be treated. No matter how good she is to them, they will never be able to treat her the way that she deserves because he does not feel it.
Big facts.
Yeah, exactly. Y'all can love someone just by saying that is so true. Oh my God, that is so true. Seeing them happy is what makes you happy. Seeing them happy brings you wholeness and fullness. That's all you need. That's something that a man cannot do. Like,
As it says, they should be honest, fine, and bounce.
but we're forgetting, like, the same system that told you to manipulate yourself into loving him just because he is good to you is the same system that is telling him to stay just because you are good to him, not because he loves you. Same thing. Y'all playing the same game. The system is just set up to benefit the man. The system that you are buying into that is teaching you to manipulate yourself into loving a man that you do not love, but you end up loving him, is the same system that's telling him to stay with the woman that he does not love just because she is good to him. But y'all have the ability to do it because y'all are more mental. Y'all have the ability to actually control your reality. Y'all can control your own narrative. You can paint your truth. You can, y'all have that ability. If a woman can manipulate herself to, she really does, now she loves him. And like you hear old women say all the time, oh baby, I grew to love him. Love grows. Women say that. Men cheat. That same woman that grew to love, that wife said, oh baby, you grow to love him. Love, it grows. It's over time. That man, that's why he had the other family down across town, because he couldn't. Like, he can't. Man, we're equal but opposite. I tell people all the time, like, when you think about physics, like Newton's third law says, for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. So you have, the masculine and the feminine, both equal. These are, one isn't above the other, one isn't more than the other. These are equal but opposite forms of the same energy. So the same things that you can do to your mind, a man can do with his, you know what I'm saying? Like, a man is just as emotional as you are up here. A man can do powerful things for somebody that he feels. Y'all have no idea what a man can really do for somebody that he really loves. Like, you have no idea. For somebody that he feels, y'all have no idea what a man would really do for it. Like, you have no idea. You have never seen it. Like, but so many men are in a system that they can't break away from. They don't allow themselves to truly feel all of them. Like, for a man can kill somebody and cry at the same time because that person tried to hurt somebody that they loved. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, that's emotion. Like, y'all don't even know. Like, and that is that's the beauty that's the true beauty of men. That's what men don't, that's the side of men that they don't allow themselves to show. Like, their problems are all self-inflicted. You've never seen it.
That,
What?
but that's another thing I think when we get to like how men can break the cycle, like it's being honest. You know what I mean? Being honest about your relationships with with boys and younger men as far as like saying no, it's not how TV puts it. It's not how rappers put it out there. Like it's okay to love the person that you're with, and this is what love looks like. And this is how you love this person and treat them and show them that you care. And this is how you. I mean, those things need to be demonstrated because I think a lot of times boys and young men start out one way in relationships, thinking, "Okay, I do it this way because it's how I prove myself. This is how I establish my dominance." And oh yeah, I want a person to be submissive to me. All this other like jargon, you know what I mean, from people selling stuff, and not getting into okay, this is how you make a relationship last. I mean, and kind of the old heads I used to talk to, I asked them. It wasn't a whole bunch of them, but they had like lasting, marriages or relationships. Like, how do you do it? And they always had like just some colloquialism, like, oh, just, you know. What I mean, it's like there was no magic formula. No, get into it. Like, what were the difficulties that you dealt with? How did you overcome them? You know what I mean? Sharing that with the next generation so they have those as tools
Mhm.
um, to overcome. Because if you don't have things in your tool belt, if you're not practicing conflict resolution, if you're not practicing active listening, if you're not able to take criticism and not internalize it, you know what I mean, but actually use the criticism as a way to improve and change behavior, then it's going to be very hard to be in a relationship. You know what I mean? Because
Absolutely.
the
And I
relationships
think a
are going
lot
to
of
go
that
through stuff.
starts with, yeah, I think for men, a lot of that starts with loving the person that you love. Like you have to be with that person that you feel like you're more open to conflict resolution, to all of these things. It's molehills don't become mountains when you're with somebody that you feel. You don't have to win every battle. Everything is not an attack on you. Your criticism is not like critique is not criticism. Comments are not complaints. But when you're with somebody who you do not feel, every comment is gonna feel like a complaint. Every fucking critique is gonna feel like criticism. You're gonna feel like, oh, like God, shut up. You're gonna feel these things because that's not who you know. They, I'm telling you, just from experience, like I've been in, like I started very early, in life, and I've been with people who I'm still with currently, and we started messing around when we were like 13. We were like kids, you know what I'm saying? Still, we're still together. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
what's up.
So
That's what's up.
it's like when you're with that person, you're gonna, it's just like I remember some of the conversations and the things I felt like as a teenager with people who I'm still with, and I still feel the exact same. Still feel the exact same for them. And it's like, but I was emotionally expressive. I think with them because it's not like these are relationships that I had when I was a teenager, and
Yeah.
I still have access to these people, like because it's like a lifetime thing. Like with us, it's like whenever we're single, we're still together. The same way I felt like how I would if I would kill. Like I remember saying, "Man, if anybody killed you, I would kill them." I felt that when I was 14. That. I felt that. If anybody touched this person or these people who've been with me my entire life, but I feel them, and I allowed as a teenager, my relationships were passionate. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't just about because it's more than one person, and because gay marriage wasn't legal. That's why gay marriage wasn't legal. Um,
Respect.
and it's like when you are in relationships with people who you feel that passion with, and it's not just about dominance and conquest and taking from them. You see, you value every part of them. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why I say most people have no idea like the true range of a man's emotions. Like they have no idea, what that can really mean. A man can really love you for life. A man has the ability to love you for life.
Shout out to my
Um,
wife, Asa.
yeah,
She's in the chat.
you know,
Yeah.
real talk. We're like real talk. Like a man has the ability to be married and do all those things. He absolutely does. I know people don't think it's possible, but it's true, y'all. Like a man can love you the exact way that you want. You just gotta find the right one.
Good stuff.
The one that's happy.
Any
Yeah,
other
it's
final
great.
questions, y'all? I think we're reaching a good closure point, man. I think we talked about a
Mhm.
lot. We've gone through the gamut of singleness. We talked about long term relationships. We've gone into how it evolved, how sexual identity evolves in boyhood. Like we've gone through a lot, um, and I really appreciate the conversation. So you're welcome back to the project anytime. Um,
Definitely.
you got any closing thoughts? Any product? Any initiatives? Things you want to plug?
Um, Not necessarily plugs. I do stuff like on a local level. I don't know. Not no plugs, not no products. Just I don't know, like they have the ability, but not the capacity. Correct. Ability and capacity. Men have to break free of patriarchy just as much as y'all do. Even though, and it's harder because men benefit from a system that they have to break free from, but men have to break free from it as well. It hurts men just as much as it hurts you. Patriarchy is just as oppressive to men as it is for you because it takes the humanity away from men, it strips your humanity from you, and men are not taught that they're actually complex human beings. They're taught that what it means to be a man is to not be complex, but men are very complex. I mean, men are simple, but they're not basic. It's a difference, you know. So that's pretty
Black
much it.
Farmer being hashtag do women's work. I love
Yeah,
that.
right. But yeah, that was cool. That was cool as shit. That was cool. And I never go live. You know what I'm saying? Like I never go live. I be so all over the place, man. Like I be traveling and shit.
No,
All over.
I didn't go live until this year. I'll pop into other people's lives and be like, what's up, say my little 2 cents and bounce. But especially like after I would say fall of 2023, lives got really intense. You know what I mean? It was just like a lot of people shouting over each other. And I'm like, you know what? I want something that's more, just one on one. We have a conversation. If people come up, they can come up after the conversation. But it's just because you get more thoughts out, without everybody interrupting everybody else and trying to get, step over
Right.
each other.
Exactly. Right. But yeah, I mean, it really was like I think that um men realized who they really were completely and fully. Shit will fall in line. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like finding love. I don't know. I can just speak from personal experience and also from the experience of everybody else that I know. But um, yeah, it's easy to love a man. I tell people it's easier to love a man than it is to be loved by a man. So for a man to say that he does not receive love or people aren't loyal to him, that's self. It's easier to love a man than it is to receive love from than to be loved by a man. That's just a fact. Like show people who you are and I've never in my entire life not felt loved. I'm gonna be honest with you, ever,
That's what's up, man.
ever. So it's out there. Men just gotta just stop. You know what I'm saying? Like stop pretending. Stop this fucking charade.
Right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Election is the mother of the revolution. Revolution is just the sun for the next generation. Generations are just light for the memory, for countless babies born each morning. So where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line in time to even picture a timeline where by definition, a line has a beginning, an ending? No, each morning is just another reason to lose count of a time that never existed. Because while we pretend we walk reality in straight lines, the planet itself spins in cycles, leaving revolution obvious. Dancing circles around a rectangular concept of progress we like to call God, praying salvation white, creating sacred shapes to keep the colors in the corner, and the blacks on the fringes, and the money on the center. Building a pyramid of interest that keeps its inventors walking through life like it's a shadow of death, when it's really just a shadow of death, cast by skyscrapers that keep success held high, like a candle in the sky, reflecting the sunshine, providing just enough false light to keep the peasants and hoodlums scrambling for the breadcrumbs, left to keep the righteous backsliding to the city line to hell. And I'm wondering why revolution is a four-letter word, yet the way people profanely spell it, like it's filler, like it's offensive, like it's anything else than just another word, rusting on a shelf of good intentions, like love, love life, life free. This is what they taught me and told me was tangible. A few years after I learned that I was black and what black really means, before I took a pencil in my hand for the first time and tried to sketch America, or at least what I thought it could be. I took my own blank sheet of this country, my own little state of being, my own little city of influence, and I thought that if I could just sketch blackness correctly, if I could just make the color walk in sharp lines and complex shades, if I could just express how beautifully black and white could coexist on paper, all the could haves and would haves and should haves would start to amount to shit, and intentions would accumulate into what I did and what I have and what is happening. But what I found was that the world wasn't framed in black and white, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't describe like love, love life, life free, with those means only two-dimensional streams of pain and history that keep repeating themselves in current events. Cause composing a revolution is like trying to draw an ocean that can show which way the water flows. Yeah, the tide is going out, but the waves are still coming in and around and at you, and they're not staying in the shorelines, they're crashing right on top of your neighborhood, and the riptide is dragging children out of their schools, and fathers out of their families, and mothers out of their minds, and you can see them trying to tread water, straining just to stream, with their lungs half filled, drowning from the very same substance every other person in America is drinking and enjoying at this very same moment right now. Freedom. Or at least, if they thought it would be. And so I traded my pencil in for a paintbrush and left revolution for things like truth and meaning and understanding and cooperation, things that could make freedom more safe. And I thought that if I could just color my canvas in such a way that it explained diversity vivid and depicted democracy real, even pictured peace profitable, that the people, all the people that would look, all the people that would listen, and the people that would live, and stop killing each other over colors and shapes and sizes and dimensions, like love, love life, life free, like me, capturing every color that I see in the aerosol can trapped behind my teeth, trying to spray paint dreams faster than wind can take them from me, watching as they vaporize before my very eyes, before they barely leave my lips, before the wall can ever wear my thoughts to receive my gifts, cause America does not exist. It isn't real. This new world has always been here and yet never tangible. Told like those fairy tales my teacher told me a few years before I learned I was black. What black really means. Like love, love life, life free. Like this country with no lines, in the hand of a president that doesn't know how to draw, scribbling a sketchbook so soaked in blood, the pages disintegrating every time pen meets paper. So they bleached it on the fights that was originally woven white anyway, and let borders die until the colors went off the corners, put in concentration camps. And the blacks went off the fringes, placed in penitentiaries. And the money, oh no, let's not forget about the money. It's put back in the center, and everything is right wing, no matter left or the left extreme, or whatever. As long as it flies and blends into a sky so covered in clouds, population can't see the ground. They just walk on faith and pray to a God that lives in a box and can't define his own face or her own sex or its own shape. Like love, love life, life free, free like America, bombing poverty with food, free to choose who eats and who dies, free to define what freedom is, and stapled to the eyelids of little kids who never learned that sleeping in intelligence is far worse than walking in ignorance. So they walk freely off a cliff, sleep freely off a cliff, knowing full well where it is. They just don't care. They just don't care because they see what I see.
Much to say between the moments of our games and repartee. There's never much to read between the lines of what we need and what we'll take. There's never much to talk about or say aloud, but say it anyway.
They woke up each morning to look in the mirror and see a dream lying behind its teeth. smiling like it wants to see something happy or funny or inspiring, but instead it just stares and grins and stays silent because it's not really there. It's just a lie passed down from parent to parent, like the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus, or something to keep the little kids moving along through the grades, anxiously waiting the present like it'd be anything more than a toy. That's why I play games with my time and look surprised when it's so broken. When the minutes are bleeding out of its beady eyes, when the months are sticking together like fur, coated with what used to taste like candy, but now just resembles the cavity that torments my waning smile. And I'm old and I'm gray inside, with black and white so smeared on my soul and psyche, it became my religion, raping the body of my sanity until truth and lie became the last few relatives of my family. So I traded in my paintbrush for his son, and I thought to myself, if I could just teach this one baby that God has blessed me with to like love, to search for it as if it were a lost brother or sister, to want as if it were the first teddy bear I placed in his crib, if I could just raise this one child to love life, to admire and cherish it, as if it were the finest art, to treat it as like it was priceless, and collect every piece of it, to learn the forgotten craft of creating life. Life would be free. My life. All life would be free through my son, and would be free through my reflection. And that's what I realized.